Welcome to today's AP automation series for Webdocs Document and Forms Management Automation. Today's topic is Accounts Payable Automation with VAI S2k Enterprise. Today I'm going to be covering the AP Base Package. The AP Base Package is a great starting point for your AP automation journey. Here's a diagram of the base package. The base package provides users the capability to be able to scan incoming invoices into the system and then be able to index that information via the S2k interfaces and then do what we call backfill and validation processing with S2k, and then also route documents if they need to, and store them into the secure repository. We'll also be covering today some of our other what we call user tools that give you the capture capability for users like for Microsoft Office documents, and also drag and drop capability into the system as well. The process that you're going to be seeing here today and what we're talking about is sort of a three-step process. And it's usually done with what we call dual screens, where we give the capability for the vendor invoices to be scanned with what we call our Webdocs Scan Workstation. So the Scan Workstation would be able to capture those documents either from direct attached scanners or multifunction scanners, and then be able to enter the data into S2k from that interface. So they would be doing some manual entry of that data to the S2k interface. Then they can pull that information into the Webdocs Scan Workstation to be populated with a button pushed during the check-in process. So no rekeying of that data needs to happen. So once that data is in the S2k interface, we can then take that information and then process it over into the system. So from an interface standpoint, how that looks, that the Webdocs Scan Workstation gives you that capability to, like I was talking about just a second ago, is to directly integrate into scanners that might be attached. So any Tween compliant scanner that you have connected to a PC, we have the capability to be able to scan new documents, scan append documents into it, and also scan batches of documents into it. If you have no direct attached scanners and you have multifunction copier scanners on the network, we have capability to be able to scan into folders, and then from the Scan Workstation, open those folders up on the network and then populate the document images down below, and then be able to drag and drop those images into the interface so you can actually do the keying of that data. So we have some capability there to be able to process that information. Now, when we're capturing data from the document, so you might be rekeying this information or keying this information into the VAI interface from the standpoint, so scanning a batch of documents, having the other screen open where you have the VAI interface and keying that information in to be able to populate it. But then we can also set up masking technology to be able to read data off the document and barcodes off a document. So this is what we call a template-based system that's part of the base package. So in the day in the life of an AP user, they could be using this information to be able to categorize the document into the system and extract a few key values into the keys, so that we can then do what we call the backfill and validation process. Now that backfill and validation process looks something like this, right? So when that information is extracted off of here, that information has been populated into these different keys through the OCR technology, either via OCR extraction or barcode extraction of data. And then we can check that document into the Webdocs system and then do what we call pre-post check-in process, or that validation backfill process, and then retrieve the data from S2k that was entered and populate that into our system. And then the documents can be routed through that process. So if there's no validation, so say that there's a PO number that was entered into the Scan Workstation, we go back to VAI to look for that information, and that information is not there, then we can kick that document into a workflow, or we can actually pop up a message to the operator to be able to do verification at the operation level. Or if you want more automation around that, you just want to be able to scan and put them in, we can kick them into automatic workflow processes to process that information to the system. So that gives you the capability there. So an example of that would be, hey, maybe I don't want to enter in all the key information. I could use OCR to be able to extract some of that data here. Or I might just say, hey, I just want to enter in the PO number. And then when I check in the document, that's going to do that backfill and validation process. So that's a method to be able to, be able to capture and then process that information into the system. Now, at any time we're capturing a document, we have the capability to enter those into workflows as well. So if you do need to put those into what I call a linear-based workflow, we can put those into a linear-based workflow, for review and approval, or just purely notification. So we have that capability. So part of the Webdocs system, we have that built-in workflow capability to be able to workflow those documents through, any kind of workflow that you might generate in the system. And these workflows can be user-specific, or they could be, more of a group of people. So there could be a single user, or there could be multiple people that need to have access to it. And then you can also set up email notifications to those individuals, and then allow different kinds of securities at each of these steps, along with different expiration dates measured in hours, days, and weeks. And if something isn't happened within that time period, then we can take certain actions on those documents in those processes, and then either move them forward, backward, or notify someone during those steps. Very easy creation process. So if you need to create your workflow changes, maybe in a couple weeks or a month or a year, as the business changes, we can actually create different steps inside these workflows, and then create input to these steps and create output, and then configure that step to have different users associated to those steps. So very easy to create those different processes inside the system. Now, from a user standpoint, how do users interact with the system, right? So if the documents are coming into a workflow, or if it's an archive of information I need, from that standpoint, we have capability, the direct capability inside the system is the Webdocs interface to be able to interact with those documents. So they can log in through our web browser interface. After they log in through the web browser interface, they can be directed a couple different directions, right? They can be directed to search for documents, or they can be directed to the inbox to be able to do that approval. So if a document came in as an exception or needed some kind of level of approval, someone would get that in their inbox where they can click on, the document that needs approval. We have a single user interface to be able to see all this information inside of here, so we can see that data that was extracted from the document, or hand keyed from the document, or validated from the S2k system and backfilled into here. So we can do stuff like that. We can set status flags. So if things are going around through workflow, maybe you want to set different status flags, so like pending, approved, and stuff like that. And these options here on the left panel are options that you have, that you created in that workflow designer that you gave that user to be able to do. Now, when routing a document around, there might be you might want the capability of being able to create notes. We have a secure note function here that you can create notes. And we also have annotations built into our viewer over here in the right-hand panel. So if I need to be able to say, hey, I need to highlight some information on here, I can highlight information. I can put rubber stamps on things. I can type text on it. I can also do sticky notes on the document. So as this document's being passed around, we can put sticky notes on it so the next person in line or the end person can see, all that information that was collected inside of here. So in this case here, maybe I only received 100 of the 200 quantity. So I want to make sure that that note gets, clarified on the document itself. Now, from the next option we have inside the system is maybe a user wants to be able to search for documents, right? They want to be able to come into the system, and they need to come in and say, hey, I need to find all the information for a certain PO or for a certain invoice. So they can come in here and do what we call a quick search inside of here. So I can say, go look for this PO information, and then find all pertaining information to that PO inside the system and I want to go look at that invoice, they can click on the invoice. They can see if there was any notes added to it inside of here, along with any of the data that was extracted for it. And maybe you want to see the status, who did approval on it, stuff like that. They can see all that information at that time. These here are all security functions of the system, so you can add different functions and different security privileges to different users. So if you just want them to have view capability, or if you want them to be able to edit, make changes, add notes, and things like that, you can do that from here. The system is fully audit and version controlled, so you can actually see the different approvals that have happened on the document, search for it, who's viewed it, and then also the different versions of the document if people have made changes to it all the way back to the original check-in document untouched. So we keep that in its full life cycle inside the system. Now, when we're working with the S2k system, a lot of times you don't want to have to come to the web browser to do that lookup. So we do have capabilities inside of S2k to be able to do what we call document searching from different screens. So you might be in an inquiry screen, you go say, geez, I need to see the document that's associated to this data. So the nice thing about this is there's a button that can, if it's not in there already on the screen, you can add those to the different screens inside of S2k to be able to press that button inside of there, and then it will launch that document or documents, if there's multiple, into that interface to be able to populate those. So that's another way to be able to do that, from the S2k system. Now, the last things I want to discuss is what we call our user tool, or other ways to be able to capture documents, right? We call them user tools, right? So Microsoft Office add-ins and tray capture. So it might not be always scanned documents that you need to bring into the system. You might have an electronic document already. So we have something called the Webdocs tray capture utility that allows you to take electronic content and capture it into the system. So say that I have a PDF document, attachment, or something like that. I can drag and drop those documents into the system, check them in with maybe just putting the PO number or one value, and then that check-in and backfill and validation process can kick in to fill in the rest of the information into the Webdocs system. Now, this tray capture is a multi-function utility, so it can also scan documents. It doesn't have to be electronic always. So if there is a piece of paper that someone needs to be able to scan, they might not have the scan workstation on their machine, they can hit the scan button and scan documents into the system as well. And then also with what we call our Microsoft Office add-in capability, say that you have a document that you need to get into the system. Might be an email, might be correspondence going back and forth, or it might just be the pure document that you want to capture. You can either drop and drag that into the tray capture utility or use our Office add-in capability to be able to save documents into the system directly from the Microsoft Office applications. So we have that check-in process. So a lot of times companies will say, geez, I need to have someone see this, but I don't want it to have the email trail going around. I want to capture it from my email, put it into the Webdocs system, and have them do their review and approval inside the Webdocs system. So we give you that capability to be able to do that direct check-in right from Microsoft Outlook and also Microsoft Word inside of here as well. One of the other features inside of here that you see is that we can also search for documents through the Word interface, Word and Outlook interface. So if I'm inside of Word and I want to search for a document in the repository, I can stay right in Word to do that search inside of here. And the same thing with Microsoft Outlook, so that I can actually do that search and retrieval of documents right through the Word interface itself. All right, that concludes our overview of the VAI Base Package AT automation. If you have any questions on that, feel free to contact us and we can do a live demonstration. Thank you for your time.